All right. Hi, everybody. I am live now. Sorry, we were just figuring out some technical challenges. I hope that you can all hear me. Welcome to the Healing Brain, Monday, August 17th. I am Colleen Hudson. I am the Director of Representatives for Doman International. I am silencing my phone right now so that it doesn't start ringing at an inopportune moment. So Spencer Doman is not joining us this week. He'll be back next week. But I'm really happy to have this opportunity to hang out with all of you. I hope that you can all hear me. Yes, you can. I'm so happy. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I'm really happy to have this opportunity to hang out with all of you. I always do. This session is one of my favorite parts of the week. I think that it's such a tremendous thing that, I mean, honestly, the technology, we've always been an international organization for all of our 70 years of existence. But I am old enough to remember when people would have to, place a long distance call to talk to our staff, or even to write a letter to get questions answered about their kids. So to have this time with you and to be able to interact with you from all over the country, from all over the world, as a mother, and as a staff member of Doman International is a huge privilege. So thank you very much. And so for our regulars who are here, welcome back. For anybody new who is joining us, welcome. In the Healing Brain, every week we talk about a variety of different topics that have to do with child development, child brain development, very specifically addressing special needs, because that is our primary work. But through that work, we end up affecting really every member of the family in, I believe, a very positive way. So my experience is as a child growing up with the Doman Method program. My parents took a course with Glenn Doman in 1979 when I was 4 years old. It completely revolutionized the way that they saw their children. And my parents were very young, and I'm the oldest of four. So they had a lot of opportunity to learn with us, to help our development. When they took that course, I was 4, my sister was 3, my youngest brother was a year and a half, and my mother soon became pregnant with my youngest brother, who was an infant and had the program from day one. But when they realized that my sister was having some delays, slight delays, things that other friends and relatives were explaining away as just, oh, every kid develops differently. She's 3, she'll grow out of it, all of these things. When my parents had the information that they learned from the Doman Method, they realized we cannot in good conscience wait and hope anymore. And we're too excited about the possibilities for our kids. So we are going to begin a full program, a family program of, developmental stimulation, which makes it sound so clinical, but it really, to us kids, it was just having fun at home. We didn't know the purpose behind, monkey bars in our living room, which we had. We didn't know that we were crawling on our bellies and creeping on all fours, playing games, things like that every day. We didn't know that there was a reason behind it. But there very much was. And I'm happy to report that within a year, all of my sister's challenges were ironed out. She had been not really speaking at all. I did all the talking for us. She was hypersensitive to sound. She was hypersensitive to certain textures. There were clothes that she would not wear. She was a bit of a picky eater. She was not very coordinated. And these are all things that at 3 years old seem pretty minor. But if they had been allowed to continue, of course, could have turned into much more significant challenges. So yeah, but you'd never know ever now. She holds 2 degrees and has her own business, so she's fine. And happily married for like 15, 20, almost 20 years now. Yeah, everything is great. But then when my daughter was born, she's 21 now, I had the benefit of all this information, and it has made an inestimable difference in my life, in her life. in the life of everybody that I know who's had the benefit of this. So you are now a part of that club. I'm so happy. So today I thought we could talk a little bit about how a family can get the information that they're looking for. Obviously, if your child has a special need, a diagnosis, anything like that, you're going to be looking for answers. And if you're new, that might be why you found your way here. A few weeks ago, Spencer and I did a whole session on a symptom-focused approach versus a holistic approach to a kid's challenges. And the Doman Method is holistic. In the very truest sense of the word, we look at every area of a child's development. We evaluate every child or every part of their development, physical, sensory, respiratory, nutritional, and cognitive. All of these things work together. Every single part of it is going right back to the brain. How is the brain functioning? How is the brain getting functions to function or not? And we find that that's really the best way to get results. And that is why, by the way, if you're doing other types of therapies, let's say you've been doing PT or speech or OT or ABA or any of these other things that are out there, if you've been doing those for a time and you've seen maybe some result, but very limited result or no result, it's not because you're not doing it right. Okay. It isn't because your child can't learn or can't improve. And you know that as a parent, you know that something is missing. But it's scary to think that when you don't know what is missing and you don't know how to get the answers. So trust your gut. You are right. When it comes to your child, you are always going to be the expert. And that's very firmly where we stand. But of course, we have many, many years of experience that we can share with you. So one of the best places for families to start when they're learning about the Doman Method, I talk to people all day, every day. It is my joy. It is my job. I love talking to parents about what we do, how we can help, why it's different. And parents are always saying, well, how do we get started? How do we get started? Obviously, working with us is a great thing to do. That's what our staff does, right? We do evaluations. We determine what combination of treatments and activities is going to benefit your child as an individual, because diagnoses aren't going to get you very far, honestly. We have to determine what your kid needs. And then we design that program. We teach you that program. We guide you. We support you. We're always learning more and we're always teaching. But our ultimate goal is for your child to have full independence. And that means getting you full independence. I've heard Douglas Doman say a few times that if, the staff of Doman International fell off a cliff tomorrow, our books, our lectures, parents would be able to carry on because parents have always been the focus, I guess, of our teaching. And that's why we don't have centers. We have an office, a clinic where families come for their evaluations and we teach their programs. But as soon as we've taught you that program, you go home to do it because we are empowering you as a parent to do that, because nobody will ever know your kid the way that you do. So even though our staff have all of these years of experience, of course, they have a tremendous amount of perspective. That's the thing, right? You will still, if you have the right information, you will still make great decisions for your kid. And I think most of the families who contact us do know that already. You feel that in your gut. That's why you're looking for something different, because you're not content with what has been going so far. You're like, there's got to be something else, right? There has to be a better way, more in-depth information. So here we empower parents with our information, and we have our books, which is what I wanted to talk mainly about today. But we also have, of course, this session every Monday, although we talk about a lot of different things, but we welcome families to share questions both in advance as well as live in the session. A while back, we haven't done this in a little bit because we haven't really had any volunteers. I think people are shy. But last year, we had a couple of moms who were very new to the program. They had only just heard about it. They had not come for an appointment or anything like that, but they were learning and they wanted to ask questions live in this session with Spencer. And we do a lot of interviews and things, but usually with parents who have had experience with the Doman Method. We want to share that with you. But this was really cool because it was moms who were just learning, and it was a great opportunity to have a conversation, about ideas that are out there that are maybe not quite real or not quite true, and as well as for them to get specific answers for their kid, which I thought was really valuable and great for families to see in real time. So with all that said, if you were to ever want to come live, to a live and maybe have a bit of a chat with Spencer on camera and in front of everybody live, please get in touch with me because we would love that. My email address is info@domaninternational.org, or you can always message us. You can put it in the comments here. We can be in touch. So I want to talk about our books. The books are the kind of perspective that I think a lot of parents wish they had been given right from the outset. When your child is born, right? Even if you don't know initially that they have a special need. When your child is born, you're handed this baby. I don't know about the rest of you, but when my daughter was born and they put her on my chest for the first time, midwife holds her up and boom, she's here. And I looked at her and I was like, oh, she's real. That was my first thought, because until they're born, they're kind of theoretical, even though, of course, your body is growing and changing, that they're in there. When they're out and they're here, suddenly they're real. And I think even more so if at birth your child has an emergency, or if you're seeing on the doctor's faces and the nurse's faces that something is not quite right, that is even more real. And in that moment, as you're becoming a parent for the first time, you're also realizing that you don't know what you're doing. None of us knows what we're doing when we're first handed that baby. But when your child has challenges, it can be, of course, even more terrifying. We had a wonderful interview last week, for those of you who weren't with us, with Kalisha Peterson. Her daughter, Maya, is a superstar. And when Maya was born, there was an emergency, and she, immediately they were plunged into the world of, medical issues and the things that you hope to never have to deal with when you're expecting. And Kalisha has since written a book. She's published it on Amazon. It's called Great Victory. It's wonderful. And Maya is doing spectacularly well. But I think that for parents, when we have our children and we start realizing that we need information, we need advice, we need perspective. If your child is having major issues, of course, you begin to talk with doctors and therapists and all of these different people. And you hope that they're able to give you the kind of perspective that you need. But the truth is, their job is to, look at a child's diagnosis or to find a diagnosis and to begin putting together a clinical plan for you and for your child. They're not, and they could be wonderful, warm people, but they're not necessarily going to have the same level of information or understanding of what kind of development is possible for your child. They're going to be very focused on the pathology, and that's their job. But as a parent, you are going to be focused on, well, what can I do? What is the good news? How can I foster my baby, my little child, to get function. And that's the parents who come to us say, I know that there's more my kid could be doing. I just don't quite know how to get there. So our books are the best place to start. I have here a copy of Answering Autism. Oh, it's backwards. I'm so sorry. I think Spencer must have a printed, well, maybe it's always backwards and it just looks that way to me. I don't know. But I have a copy of Answering Autism. I actually lent my copy of the Doman Method book. So we have two sort of how-to books, or talking. There are a lot of why, and then there are a lot of how, right? They explain why the Doman Method is effective, and then they explain how to do it in great detail. Oh, great. Les is showing it. Thank you, Les. Thank you so much. So yes, that is the Doman Method from special needs to wellness. If your child has any kind of diagnosis at all, truly, even if their diagnosis is autism, you're going to get a lot out of this book. It talks about brain development, and it explains how we look at brain development. We use a document called the Developmental Profile, and the Developmental Profile was designed by Glenn Doman and his team. It breaks down all of the functions that are vital to development and which parts of the brain are responsible for them. And so we teach you how to evaluate your child yourself, which may sound daunting for those of you who have not really dove into the Doman Method yet, or who have not, if you've come to take an appointment, you know all about this now. But if you haven't, learning how to evaluate your child functionally is actually very straightforward for a parent. This is something that I've heard moms and dads say for years and years. Parents from every walk of life, who say, wow, like I didn't think that this would be, like, I didn't think it would be this intuitive, right? I don't have a medical background. And even parents who have a medical background say, if they had taught this as clearly in medical school as you guys do, I think everybody would have been better off. But it's very intuitive to parents because we've been watching our kids develop since day one, or we've been watching them not develop since day one. So we're very familiar with all of the different parts of a kid's development that are key. So when you learn how to evaluate your child, and we teach you step by step, it's really easy how to do for a mom or a dad, truly. So once you have learned how to do this evaluation, you can determine which areas of your child's brain need the most stimulation. So the way that the approach that we take is, starting with, people talk about primitive reflexes, vital function, all of that kind of thing. Those are important for sure. We need to stimulate those as needed, right? If our child doesn't have a primitive reflex that they should have, we have to stimulate that, because it's a key indicator that that part of the brain needs attention. Or if they've retained a reflex that they should have grown out of by now, or that should have relaxed. Like, take, for instance, a startle reflex. So we all know that effect when, maybe you're standing in the street and a car horn goes off right nearby, and you're like, whoa. And you look and you see, and then it's still beeping, beeping, beeping. But the second time you hear it, once you've identified the source of the sound, you don't startle again, not to that degree. You might be like, oh, that's really unpleasant. You could just stop the honking. But after that initial vital response, that, whoa, what's going on, right? Am I threatened? You reason through it. You realize, oh, that's what's happening. Okay, unpleasant. Hope it stops. Moving on. For a child who does not have full development in that area, they will have a persistent startle reflex, and sometimes they'll cry, because let's say you've startled them with that sound, and then you're pointing at, oh, it's okay, look, it's just this car is honking. But to the child, every honk is the same level of shock, of surprise. So, and every time they go like that, that's a persistent startle reflex, and it's not appropriate past a certain age. So the developmental profile explains how to evaluate that in your child. And that's why I'm saying for parents, these kinds of things, you start reading about them, you learn how to evaluate, you're like, oh, I get this. It's very clear because I'm watching the way my child interacts with the world, exists with other people, and I can evaluate this very easily. I don't even have to really make too much of an artificial situation. I mean, we do when we evaluate startle reflex in our offices, we will use often a wooden block. Sometimes there's a little bit of a shuffle moment where the staff member is waiting until the child is definitely not looking at them, right? Like sometimes parents will, by prearrangement, distract their child, and it's like, oh, look at that. The kid looks away and the staff member will go bang on the desk with the wooden block to see what the child's startle reflex is. Because also a reflex that doesn't happen is not appropriate. I mean, that is a vital response. You should absolutely startle at the first sound of something that is not expected, right? If you don't, it indicates that you may have a hyposensitivity to sound. So it all gives us information, but again, it's all very intuitive. So if you use the information in the book, you can do your own evaluation. And we really recommend this, even when families are coming for an appointment. Let's say it's, your appointment's in September, right? You just booked it on Friday. We had a nice conversation. You're like, yes, we're coming in September. I can't wait to see you. We say, wonderful. We are now recommending that you begin watching our foundational lectures. If you haven't read the book, to read the book, because sometimes different modes of learning sink in different ways. And through that, and then the book, of course, you can read it right there, and it explains how to do this evaluation. And we say you should do this with your child before you come into the office, because of course our staff are going to do that evaluation when we see you, but your child at home is going to be a little different, right? They're relaxed at home. Maybe they'll cooperate with you. Maybe they won't. Maybe you'll be doing the evaluation and there's one thing where you're just like, I can't get a read on this. I'm going to wait for the staff to do that. But by and large, you can figure out how to get the evaluation done. Sometimes parents will come to this session with questions about an evaluation that they're doing at home. And it's like little activities that build up to a bigger picture. And based on that, you can determine a functional diagnosis of your child. So what we are about is a functional diagnosis. Function shows what's going on, right? And this is why sometimes parents will say to me, I'm very frustrated. I spent a year trying to convince my insurance company to cover a brain scan for my child because nobody could quite figure out what was going on with them. They had this diagnosis and they had that diagnosis. Everything was a little fuzzy. So then the doctor said, well, maybe a brain scan would give us better information. Got the insurance to cover the brain scan, got the brain scan results back, and they were inconclusive. And what could be more frustrating than that, right? Because you're thinking we're going to get some answers, but imaging can only tell us so much. We've had many parents who say, my kid's brain scans they're within normal range, right? That lovely phrase. You're like, if they were normal, then I wouldn't be worried. If my kid wasn't having problems, then I could relax. But obviously the brain scan, and you're not mad at anybody. You're just thinking, why is it that the brain scans don't show any significant issue? Like it's like a broken leg, right? We want to know, okay, where's the fracture? How are we going to heal? What kind of cast do we need? How long do we need to stay off of it? Whatever the specifics are. But when it comes to brain development, it's not that straightforward. And that's why function can be a much more specific way to figure out how to heal and how to address symptoms, right? Because we're not treating the symptoms. That's not going to do us any good. But we can't determine a viable plan until we do know which parts of the brain are most affected and what needs the attention. And we really can determine that best from a functional evaluation, which then gives us the functional diagnosis, which is 1,000 times more useful than, autism. I mean, so many times I talk to parents and they say, my kid has an autism diagnosis, but he has no problem with eye contact, right? Or he doesn't stim, all kinds of different things. You say they gave him that diagnosis because it seemed to kind of fit a lot of what he was dealing with, but not everything. And because the diagnosis is not your kid, right? And your kid is not the diagnosis. So when you use the Doman Method book is a great place to start. And it's a really practical thing. We talk about why the Doman Method works, right? The scientific foundations of it. I see that somebody actually is asking about, is the Doman Method based on science? It absolutely is. It's based in functional medicine. Actually, Glenn Doman arguably was, and his team were among the first people to work in what is now known as functional medicine. But it's been a long time. So based on the functions that your child has or does not have, we can then determine what to do about it. So the book talks about why the Doman Method is effective, and how to put all the pieces together. Once you've got that evaluation that you've done, there's a lot of practical info. I'd say I'm looking at answering autism right now. So I guess I should mention though, why do we have two books, right? If the Doman Method from special needs to wellness is effective for all diagnoses, and if the Doman Method doesn't really care about diagnoses because those aren't the best indicator of what your kid needs, your kid's an individual. So what we need is their own particular approach. We have Answering Autism because for years we've had parents ask us, thank you, Les, is the Doman Method for autism? We do not see autism as a freestanding disease, right? It's just the symptoms that result in a diagnosis of autism are consistent with neurological issues. And because the Doman Method addresses neurological issues head on, autism is covered. But we also recognize that there are certain issues within an autism diagnosis that are very particular, right? So the Doman Method from special needs to wellness does have a whole chapter on mobility, because a lot of the kids that we see have mobility challenges. Maybe they don't move at all. They might be completely immobile. They might only be able to drag themselves around on the floor, and not a true army crawl, but just kind of pulling themselves or rolling. Some of them are able to walk, but very, very poorly. So mobility is still a huge concern for parents, because they're like, I don't want my kid stuck in a walker for their whole life, or I don't want them to have to live, limited because they're afraid of falling all the time. So the Doman Method from special needs to wellness talks a lot about mobility, as well as all of the different areas of development that are key. Answering Autism does go into mobility, but the majority of kids who have received a diagnosis of autism aren't really having big mobility issues. I mean, sometimes it's very much the opposite, right? Parents will say, my kid never sits still. My kid doesn't need help learning how to run or climb or jump because he never stops. So Answering Autism was, and there are certain things that we've learned too about diet. And saying diets is so general, but you really do need a very tailored, specific approach for each and every kid. When families come to work with us, we do labs, or rather we ask parents to obtain labs, because we've gotten so good in the last even 5 to 10 years. Our staff are tremendous when it comes to determining from lab work, what kinds of nutritional needs this child has, what kind of supplements we should be recommending, oxygenation, everything. Nutrition has always been a part of the Doman method pretty much from day one. But, and that's an interesting thing. Like for me, talking to all of my peers who didn't grow up with the Doman method, my parents were not exactly, they were hippie adjacent, but they weren't like super hippie people. But we were definitely at the natural food store when I was a kid. My mother baked her own bread for a while because we had to have whole grains, it just wasn't something that you could get readily. Everything had to be made from scratch because it just, to be nutritionally complete, we had to eat real food. But yeah, a lot of time at the health food store. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. And I think most people do understand much better now the connection between, a nutrient-rich diet and function. Like that people talk about, my brain fog improved and things like that when I, maybe I cut dairy out for a while, or, I've been prioritizing protein, things like that. That's all great. And for you and I, we can do things like that. We can tinker with things and kind of see how we feel better if we don't feel like going and getting labs. But for kids with special needs, it can be a little bit more complicated. So we do talk in depth in our books about nutrition, about the kinds of labs that could be useful to you, and just how to really get a specific approach for your kid, because whatever kind of dietary recommendation, even something that's like a packaged deal that you hear about or read about, or even another parent says, wow, we did this thing, we cut this out or we added this, and that's been a game changer for my kid. That's amazing. That's a wonderful thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to be true for your child, right? So that's where really getting specific and using labs can be very helpful. But we've learned a lot of things about how different kinds of nutritional approaches can help individual kids, particularly with, every kid, but particularly kids with an autism diagnosis. That kid I was talking about, right? The one who does not sit still. And parents will say, I feel like he wants to sit still. He's exhausted, but he kind of can't until he just passes out. And maybe he doesn't even sleep that well. Maybe he sleeps 2 hours and then he's up again. And then the whole house is up, because what can you do? And a lot of that can be addressed through nutrition, through even filtering water, filtering air, just checking your environment for various allergens and things like that, because we're a whole system. And so, but for our kids, when they have special needs, their system is like a hair trigger, right? There are things that affect them very strongly that you and I kind of roll right through. We don't even know. I had a friend who, she had terrible migraines. And we were talking the one time and she said, it's funny, I just read that my migraines might be a product of a dairy allergy. She's like, so I'm going to get some gut tests to see about that. She said, but it's the craziest thing, because I've never had any dairy issues. I've never had any bowel issues. I've never had any nausea. I've never had any, indigestion and things like that. She said, so the idea that a foodstuff could be not causing these gut symptoms that I would expect, like that you hear about, right? People are like, oh, I can't have lactose. But that they could be particularly responsible for my migraines, of all the things, is just shocking to me. And I was like, that's not that shocking to me, but only because of my background with Doman International and with the Doman Method, because our bodies are all unique, and the way that they respond to things is so individual, and even more so for our kids. So it's really helpful to have that information. But we go into all of that in depth. I also wanted to mention, now that I'm talking about nutrition and all those things. So, and I have a copy and I cannot find it this morning. Les, maybe you'll be able to pull one up. I'm sorry. We published a cookbook a few years ago. And it is the Doman Method cookbook. So it's full of recipes for, oh, perfect. Les, thank you so much. It's full of recipes for, specifically for parents on our program, but it's really just full of good, nutritious food. You don't even have to be doing the program to enjoy it. I cook several recipes out of here regularly. And it's also a great creativity starter for me because I do try to cook as many meals as I can from scratch. I make dinner pretty much every single night, and then we'll do leftovers for lunch and things like that. But sometimes you just get worn out of ideas, right? And that's when you grab the convenience food or you order takeout because you're like, my brain is mush. I can't think about any new food. So I like having cookbooks for inspiration, even if I'm not going to be cooking the recipe straight out, especially if it's got too many ingredients. But this cookbook was designed for our families, so it is very practical, and it addresses a lot of different types of cultural understanding because our families come from all over the world, and I think that food is one of those things that is so personal. It means emotion to a lot of us. It brings back memories of family, good and bad. We all can get really attached to our foodways, and which is a wonderful thing. And like most of our family recipes probably nourished generations, right? So nothing can be more distressing though to parents than to try to cook great food for their kids and have it rejected or have it not get the desired result. You're cooking beautiful food for your child, but they're still not growing, or they're still always sick, or they're still always tired and weak. And you think, like, how much more can I do? I'm doing all of this stuff from scratch. That's where labs come in, right? We figure out if our child is getting this really beautiful, clean, nourishing diet, but we're still not seeing the benefit of that. What is going on? What's preventing those nutrients from being absorbed properly? And it's just such an individual thing, but we can help with that. But yeah, the Doman Method cookbook has a lot of great ideas and a lot of really practical information about ways to work with maybe grains or things that are not familiar to you, or legumes, or just, again, it's a creativity starter. I find that it gets my mind working again when I hit a wall and I'm like, I cannot think of another meal to make right now. I open the Doman Method cookbook and pull something out of it or get an idea. So it's very useful. Oh, this is a very good question. Is this book in Espanol? Les, do you know if the book is in Spanish? Because I do not know if the book is in Spanish, and I am sorry. I will see. We'll get the answer for you in a moment. Okay. It is not. I'm so sorry. Lo siento. We should do something about that. Okay. Well, note to self. It's not in Spanish, but it is in English, and I will find out what we can do about that. Okay. And maybe how soon. So Doman Method cookbook, answering autism, the Doman Method from special needs to wellness. Getting back to my original point and purpose in talking about all of this. I know so many families, because I'm privileged to speak with parents every day who are interested in this program for their child. I think that there is still a bit of a misconception that in order to get the benefit of the Doman Method program for your child, that you have to come for an appointment with our staff. Spencer and I talk a lot about our appointments because it's what we do. And of course, we want to see as many of you as we possibly can, because we know that if you can get to us, right, or do a remote appointment, if we can start working with you directly, that we can put things in place that are going to get results for your child. Those of you who were with us last week, Kalisha mentioned that when she came for Maya's first appointment, Maya was not crawling. Now we say crawling on the belly. Creeping is all fours. So Maya was not crawling. Kalisha was given a physical program. Rosalind taught it and said, okay, do this, do this, do this. Do it every day, the way that I've told you. And 2 weeks from tomorrow, when you started, give me a call and we'll do the next part of the program because she'll be crawling by then. And Kalisha, it was really funny because she said her initial reaction was, yeah, all right, lady, okay, that's, I would love to believe that's true, but how can you know, right? Well, sure enough, 2 weeks later, Maya just started crawling off the end of the incline floor that we had her crawling on. Incline floor is one of the pieces of equipment that we recommend to parents. We have plans, and actually the plans for all of our equipment are in the back of the Doman Method book. And then some plans are also in the back of Answering Autism. Again, not the incline floor because, we would tell parents whose children are having mobility challenges, read the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. And that'll include the plans. We don't sell those because it's not practical for most of our families to have them shipped, and we have no interest in becoming a wood shop. It's a lot more cost effective and easier for you to have it built or to build it yourself in your town. So that's why we provide plans. But anyway, Maya starts crawling and Kalisha's like, it's 2 weeks. How could that be? And she called Rosalind and was like, how did you know she's doing it? And of course, Rosalind's like, well, I've been doing this for a few minutes, But I want to say that Kalisha has been, she did a full program with Maya. She did come for an appointment. But we don't see them all the time anymore. So because Kalisha has gotten to the point where, she checks in with us. There are parts of the program that she'll get recommendations for, but she is now, and Maya is now at the point where they can do a lot of things independently. And we're just here for perspective, which is really what you need, I think, most when you're a parent, regardless of whether your kid has special needs or not. Everybody wants to give you advice when you're a parent, and sometimes that's wonderful, and other times it's a pain in the butt. But if you can learn to trust your own gut about your child based on real information, that's the most powerful thing. Because, I'm really grateful that I can call my parents, anytime I have a question about, my daughter's 21 now, but still sometimes perspective is helpful, right? And we've gotten to the point in our relationship now where we're peers in a way. They're my parents, but we all have this experience of raising children to young adulthood, and it's wonderful to be able to get their perspective, but I won't have that forever. And we parents know that ultimately that's what we're trying to prepare our children for, is life without us. We hope that it's going to be a long time from now, but that's the reality, right? So we should be doing that for ourselves as well, that we're preparing ourselves for the independent life. And we do it in our careers. We do it, with our own education and all of these things. But then you have this child, and perspective it's bewildering. There's so much, and it's such an important thing. It's the most important job we will ever have, is shepherding these little ones that we've brought into the world into adulthood and hopefully independence. So the best way to feel confident about that, because every kid is different and every relationship with parent and child is different. Like we are uniquely suited to raise our kids, and whether our children are, maybe they come to us a little older because we've gotten to adopt them, which is a beautiful thing. Still, we are spending that time with them to get to know them better than anybody else, so that we can guide them in the best way. And if we have perspective on their development, then we can rest assured and feel confident that we're making the best decisions for them. We have that perspective even within ourselves, because it's hard to have perspective when you're doing the thing, right? Day to day. When you're in it, sometimes it feels like I don't even know how to think about things other than just keep swimming, just keep swimming. I don't know if there are any Finding Nemo fans out there, but I think about that a lot. Sometimes as a parent, it's, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, keep moving forward, keep, addressing the things as they come up. But it means that you have trouble with the perspective. I think that reading a book that speaks to you very honestly about your child's challenges and how exactly to go about addressing them can give you that perspective. So you start to feel the confidence in yourself that you know how to answer this problem, right? So for parents who are considering coming for an appointment with us, reading the book is going to give you a confidence to know whether or not you even want to work with us, right? Whether this resonates with you as a parent, whether you read it and you say, oh yes, this makes sense, or if you read it and say, I don't really want to do this. And you know what? Either response is your response. That's fine. Glenn used to say he would in his lectures, he would talk, especially in the very beginning of the lectures when he was just warming up with parents and talking to them about the results of the Doman Method, right, over years. He'd say, we teach blind children to see. We teach immobile children to walk. We teach speechless children to speak. We teach illiterate children how to read. And we've been doing this for years and years. We know how to do it. But he would say, now, if you're sitting there thinking, this fella is nutty as a fruitcake, either he's insane or he's a liar, then I encourage you to run. Don't walk to the nearest exit. And I remember he used to say that. And, most of the room, people would chuckle because they were already bought in. But I thought that's he really meant it too. He really did. He did not feel that he was there to coerce anybody into agreeing with him or, thinking what he was thinking or agreeing with, any of it. It was not his job. His job was merely to say, here's the information that we have based on long experience with thousands and thousands of children and parents. And we feel confident that if you want to come with us, that we can get real results for your kid and that we can get you on a path to that independence. But he really meant, if you don't like it, if you think that I'm a nutcase, please, not in a passive aggressive way, but please, for all of our sakes, but really for your, run, don't walk. That always made me laugh. But of course, most parents hear what we have to say and think, no, this does make sense. And because it resonates strongly with what I've already observed with my child, and it connects the pieces. It connects the dots. It pulls all the pieces together, all of those little things in the back of my mind, thinking, I feel like my child could be speaking, but there's something blocking that, right? All the speech therapy we've done, the other things that we've done, and I just feel like there's something in there. Like, my kid is smart. I know that he could speak. Maybe sometimes I've heard a word, but once or twice, and then it went away. Or maybe my kid can read. I have a feeling that maybe he reads some things, and find out that he reads a lot of things, actually. All of these things. Because parents, we have to be optimists in a lot of ways, but not optimists with no reason. We're optimists because we want to believe that there's a path forward, and finding a place where we say, yeah, we agree with you, but we also know how to get there is really wonderful. The books will help to empower you, to give you that perspective. So even if you're not quite at the point where you can take an appointment with us, or if you think that you may never be able to take an appointment with us. Because you never know, right? Things change all the time. Maybe your schedule will free up, or whatever needs to fall into place for you to come and work with us. But even if you cannot, the books will give you perspective. They'll give you confidence. They'll give you real, actual, practical information that you can start applying at home right away with your child. So I really recommend, if you haven't read the books, the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. The Doman Method cookbook is a great resource. Answering Autism, if that's your child's particular diagnosis. But again, diagnosis really doesn't matter too much to us. But we just want to answer a lot of different questions. Those are the best place to get started. And I hope that, and if you haven't read them in a while, let's say you read a book, but it's been a little while, I would go back and read it again. I actually just started rereading Answering Autism yesterday because I was thinking about this, and I already came up with a couple things. I'm like, oh, that's right, I forgot about that. And I do this every day. I talk to parents every day. So things that are valuable to me to think, oh, I have to remember to mention that the next time I'm on the phone with a mom who's like, oh, my kid has this challenge and we're just at our wit's end because all of the trainings or whatever aren't really making a difference, but I can bring that up. So yeah, it's great to have that refresher and that perspective. So I have time now. I want to look at some questions. Oh, thank you, Jane. Jane said it's the best cookbook I've ever read. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, we can use a translator for the book. Thank you very much. That's good to know. I know that somebody, Farah, I actually owe you an email. Okay, you're on my list to get in touch with today, so don't worry. Thank you. And I know that somebody asked about the math program right at the beginning. So our math program is unique. I think I don't know that I've ever heard of any other math approach that is like ours. Glenn believed strongly that if you teach children the facts of a thing, right, of a subject or whatever, that they will intuit the laws that govern them. And he was a big believer in teaching children facts because children's job is to get as much information as possible to start to learn to navigate the world, right? When you think about it. I mean, it isn't just to be cute. I mean, they are. But really, I mean, sometimes people will say, oh, that's so adorable how he keeps trying to pull himself up, right? Or he keeps trying to do this or trying to do that. Kids try to do things because they know they want to be able to do it. There's something pushing them to try and get that function. If you are a kid with special needs, the need is even greater, but the block is keeping you from reaching that function. That's where we can help you by addressing what other areas of your development are preventing that function from happening. When it comes to the math, so Glenn wrote a book called How to Teach Your Baby Math. And it is all about starting mathematical education, for want of a better word, or understanding, with very small kids. In the very beginning, we start with quantity because quantity is truth. The squiggles, right, are numerals that we use to do calculations are not the truth. They are a representation of the truth. One of the easy ways to think about this is like distance, right? If you're measuring something, the numbers that we use for measurement are just an arbitrary thing that we agreed, okay, this is, and hey, I mean, in the United States, we still use imperial, we cling to it. We love our inches and our feet and our ounces. But in Europe, everything is metric. So the centimeters, the meters, all of these things. So different systems, but the length is the length. I mean, if you measure a board for a doorway and you abandon whatever the system is, you just don't measure it correctly, it's not going to fit. So we teach our children quantity first. The classical way that a lot of people have seen actually are the red dots on cardboard. I'll tell you a funny story. There is a movie from the 80s called Parenthood. Rick Moranis is in it. I can't remember who else is in it. I have seen it, but it's a long, long time ago. My parents went to that movie. One of the few times that they went out to a movie without us. My mom doesn't really care too much for movies, but my dad always loved movies. He'd take us, and my mom would be like, I'll stay home and do my own thing. But they went out because usually they would go out for dinner or something for their date nights. But this particular night, they had heard, oh, Parenthood is hilarious. You got to go see it. They went to see it in the theater, and there is a scene with the red dot cards. Because Rick Moranis is painted as this overbearing dad who's obsessed with making his children academically superb. So he's stuffing them with things. There are word cards, like he's doing, all of these kinds of, like our reading program, basically our math program. But they're making fun of him and his character and how obsessive he is. My parents walked out of it because they got so annoyed that it was being mischaracterized. And this was when we were doing our program. So, I've talked to my parents about it since, and they're like, it was, it took us right out of it. We were so aggravated by how they were representing this as a weirdo thing that this crazy guy was trying to force on his children, his miserable children. And it practically broke up his marriage. We were like, we didn't like that at all. Then I watched it and I was like, this is pretty mild. I'm not offended, but I didn't have to defend what I, as a parent, what I was doing to other people as my parents kind of did, because people did think they were crazy. Anyway, so we start out with quantity. We show children quantity, usually up to 100. And by that time they have they've understood the truth behind numerals. And it does add a level of understanding that I think traditional math education kind of misses, because you don't start young enough. I will say though, when we started our program and I was 4 years old, I was already exposed to numerals. I knew like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I was very proud of that. Of course, I was 4. So when my parents started doing the dot cards, I did not like them. They bugged the heck out of me because I had passed the point where they were relevant, because I had already learned that, numbers were like 4 and 5. But my younger siblings, they did get they understood the dots. And I think that it gave them a better depth of understanding of math and quantity and things like that. But I highly recommend any questions about the math program. We have domanlearning.com, which has a math program and a course, I believe. I know we've got reading before school. So if you have a neurotypical kid and you're just interested in like math, early reading, things like that, highly, highly recommend domanlearning.com. Okay, that's our sister company. Noah Doman is the director. He is Glenn's grandson, Douglas and Rosalind Doman's youngest son, and he, of course, grew up on the program himself. So he's helping parents to teach their children at home. Yes. So Farah, I am going to get in touch with you today. Okay. And we'll be in touch with you. So anyway, that's wrapping up the conversation about math. But if you want more information, also reading How to Teach Your Baby Math can give you the understanding of the theory. But just to know that if your child is a little older, now you can still do a great math program with numerals. But if your kid has already been introduced to numerals, they may or may not, be keen on the dots. You can try them. You can always try them. But if your child has special needs, then you can also try, if they're aware of numerals, they also might be like, what are these dots? I'm not interested. But you can definitely try quantity, and it's great brain stimulation as well. So I think that, I'm sorry, I've been talking and talking. I think that, Les has shared a couple of really good resources with everybody. We've got our link tree, which have a number of different articles and links, of course, helpful information. If you have questions for me, oh yeah, thank you, Les. So what is the Doman Method? Excellent. Ask your questions live. Awesome. Visiting our website in 3 languages. Wonderful. And we've got, wow, this is really great. Like I knew that we had this, but I don't think I had actually looked at it. So that's on me. But yeah, I'm really happy to see this information all in one place. This is tremendous. Also very useful, families, if you have other people who are asking you questions about this. If you're joining us today, if you're already on the program, and you've got friends or family who say, what is this thing? Just send them the links. Don't try to, don't try to get into it too much with them initially, because sometimes, people who love us, I don't want to say they're looking for excuses to pick apart what we're doing. They're not, but they're just anxious that we're doing the right thing. It's like, you know what? Read this first, right? Look at this thing first, and then come back to me and we can talk about what I'm doing, because I'm busy and I'm doing what I'm doing, and I would love to talk more with you about it and maybe even get you helping us out. But, but I'm not the repository of information about the Doman Method. They are. So here, look at these links. I highly recommend that. So if you have questions about scheduling an appointment, you can get in touch with me directly. This is my email address, info@domaninternational.org. And my phone number is 814-232-8668, country code 1. You can message me there. You can call me there, whatever's easiest for you. And I just really appreciate having a chance to spend time with you today. I hope that everybody reads the books. Again, if you haven't read them before, read it. If you've read it before, read it again. And I think they're available on audiobook as well, because it's hard sometimes to get time to sit down and read a book. But really enjoyed our time today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next week. All right. Oh, last question, Antonia. It is not just for kids under 18 at all. Any age can benefit from the Doman Method. Special needs transcends age. And in fact, Glenn Doman started his initial work with elderly stroke patients. And my own grandfather, who sustained a brain injury from a catastrophic car accident in 1980 when he was in his 50s, he was healed tremendously by the Doman Method. Luckily, my parents had just taken the course the year before with Glenn Doman. So not at all 18. We're all developing throughout our whole lives. Where there's life, there's hope. So if you are the parent of a young adult or adult who has challenges, neurological challenges, please get in touch with us. All right. Thank you. All right. See you next week. Bye-bye.